Inspiring interviews with today's top landlords. This is the Rental Income Podcast. And now, Dan Lane.
I got a pretty interesting episode of the podcast for you today. On the last episode, we talked to Jessie Dillon, who bought her first Airbnb property. She did lots of research, lots of due diligence, but she just couldn't make money with the property. She ended up getting frustrated and she sold the property. And she sold it to our guest on the show today. So on the show today, we're going to hear what happened from his point of view, how he found the deal, how he put a creative deal together that worked for both Jessie and for him. And I want to see what he's doing differently because it seems like Jessie just couldn't make money with this property. So we're going to see what he's doing and how he's turned things around. Let's take a really quick break. We'll thank our sponsors. We'll come right back and we'll talk to John Stratton. It's a lot of work to find a really good rental property. And when you actually find that property, you want to make sure you're working with a lender that can get that loan closed. The lender that I recommend is Chaley Ridge from Ridge Lending Group. She's a nationwide lender and her specialty is helping investors finance rental properties. She has a ton of loan programs and she can find something customized to you for your situation. If you want to find out more or you're ready to get started today, just go to ridgelendinggroup.com. That's RIDGE lendinggroup.com, NMLS 42056. Mention Rental Income Podcast and get a $250 credit back at closing.
Rental Income Podcast.
John, so I got to hand it to you. It sounds like you put together a real creative deal here. What?
Yeah, it was something that, we worked on for a few months and, just touching back and forth with the seller and ended up coming kind of back to us after a couple months. And as the seller was kind of going over a couple different options.
Have you done other Airbnbs?
I actually have not. This was actually our first Airbnb. My wife and I, we've done a few fix and flips. We were actually, beginning of this year, we're talking about wanting to just get into more of buy and hold, creating long-term wealth and cash flow and stuff like that. And so this wasn't even on our radar when it kind of came in.
Okay. All right. So it sounds like you got into this property with no money, that you basically took over Jessie's mortgage and then you're paying her an extra $800 a month.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. And, so right away, right there, I mean, you've got a whole different structure to everything where Jessie had a lot of cash tied up with the down payment and then with buying the furniture. And I assume all the furniture came with the property when you bought it, right?
Yeah, exactly. It was already, I think the seller before Jessie ended up renovating the whole place. So it was just, 2 years recently renovated and designed and had the pictures on the walls and the fancy decorations and all of that stuff I know nothing about. So that was definitely a big selling point for us, All
right. So you've got a turnkey Airbnb with no money in it. Now, it sounds like the problem that Jessie was having is that this property is really seasonal, that you make the majority of the money in the summertime. And I know that you just bought this property and we're coming out of the summer and that's the high point. But how do you plan to turn things around to have it be profitable?
Yeah, no, that was a good question. That was one of the biggest things that we were looking at as this property is in the Lakes region here in New Hampshire. It's, one of the biggest tourist attractions, and I would probably say all of New England, or one of the biggest ones anyways. Around the Lakes region, I actually grew up when I was fairly young around the Lakes region and and I've always been kind of an outdoorsy type and doing things in the wintertime. So when I was looking at it, I saw the summer potential. Naturally, I was like, okay, that's, that'll be easy. Changing maybe some content and stuff like that on VRBO and Airbnb. But for the wintertime, what our strategy was going to be was to really capitalize in on the winter activities that go on, in or around the lake, and what other activities are nearby, like within under an hour drive time. Mm-hmm. So that's initially when we first came into it. We were thinking about doing short-term rental for the winter time, and really kind of capitalizing on, they do like ice races and they do fishing derbies out there, and people come from all around New England to go to these big competitions, if you will, in and around the lake. And then also to like vacation, to go skiing, to go cross country skiing, snowshoeing, all that kind of stuff as well. So that was our initial plan. Mm-hmm. when we first were looking at things, because we saw personally for ourselves a lot of potential to be gained, for short-term rental in the wintertime.
So is it just positioning the property differently to have those people find you that are looking for those kind of activities?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so what we were going to do is have literally, and what we did is kind of revamped, kept a lot of the content that Jessie had because it was all really good, and then added to, and capitalized on other things there in the summertime. And we were going to save that and kind of have like a summer content for Airbnb and VRBO, and then have like winter content that would kind of target the other activities and events and other things that go on there.
So, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. I think it sounds like there's a lot of opportunity there to tap into that market, but it sounds like your plans have changed a little bit.
Yeah. So since then, we were actually, I didn't know much about short-term rentals in the beginning. Like I said, and then, as once we acquired this, I'm a part of a couple Facebook groups, and in a nice little network of people that are involved with midterm rentals. And I'm like, hey, let's look into this and see if this would make sense. And just so happened, and we weren't even thinking about this when we purchased it, but we're not too far away. I think we're 25, maybe 30 minutes away from the local hospital there.
Okay.
So I actually contacted somebody that's a part of a local real estate investment group that was in that area. And then I knew he was actually working at that hospital, and kind of reached out to him. And I was like, hey, is housing, a need here? Are there a lot of traveling nurses and doctors that come in? And he kind of found out that was actually a need in that area, and that there wasn't a lot of housing for doctors and nurses.
Oh, okay.
So then, so then we kind of started changing our strategy and running the numbers, and we're like, hey, I think we might actually benefit more, and it's more consistent income. There's less to kind of worry about if we can lock somebody up in a midterm rental,
Right. Okay.
So we started navigating that path.
Okay. So it sounds like that might just be an easier way to go, where you maybe are taking a little bit less money, but you've got kind of less moving parts than trying to target people that are coming there for the winter activities, trying to go after the midterm rental in the winter months.
Yeah, and then you just don't have to worry about as much turnover, as well, and cleanings and stuff like that as much, where you just get somebody that can come in and stay for a few months, 3 to 6 months, type thing.
Now, I'm curious about the financing. So the deal that you have with Jessie is that in 3 years, you're going to pay her off, or I guess you're going to refi out of the property. So, like, what's your plan to do that?
Yeah. So how we kind of put it together is she was looking for a purchase price. I think if it was around 545, 550, around that area. And so we ended up taking over the mortgage subject to, which was about, I don't know, what is it? 390, around 396,000, almost 400,000. And then what we did was a seller carry for the 149, and that was zero down, zero interest for 3 years. And the key thing there was typically we look for longer balloons to give us more time to move money around, between properties and all that stuff. And so since she wanted the 3-year balloon, what we actually asked for was an extension, an option for an extension of that balloon at the end of the 3 years, as long as we weren't late on any payments. And so we ended up kind of negotiating for that and came to, I think it was like a $3,000 amount for that option at the end of the 3 years if we wanted that. I think it was 3,000, maybe 5,000 or something like that, but I kind of forget the numbers there.
So your plan then in 3 years would be to go to a bank and have the bank take her out?
Yeah, or from either that or, money that we have at that point set aside from other properties that, because we're doing, some fix and flips on the side and stuff like that, and just being able to move money around, because at the end of the 3 years, let's call it $100,000 would be owed, be able to just make that work. Or probably what I would end up doing is just what we do on all of our deals is bring in private money. And we have a lot of local partners here that want to be involved on any, real estate deals that we're a part of. So we were kind of thinking about probably more so along for either private money or just moving money around between properties and activities that we're doing with current properties.
Okay, so it doesn't sound like it's going to be difficult to get Jessie taken out after 3 years.
Yeah, it wasn't something that I would be worried about at all.
Awesome. So now that you've had the property here for a few months, have you seen anything that maybe Jessie was doing wrong or things maybe that you were able to improve?
Yeah. So first I kind of have a kind of like a interior is not my thing. Exterior, landscaping, patio type stuff, building, that sort of stuff is kind of a skill set of mine. So when I looked at the property, that was another thing that I saw. And so we, this year we didn't add that much because we pretty much, I think we closed on it on June 1st and pretty much rented it out right after that. So we didn't have a lot of time to do much to the property. But a few things, we dropped down some crushed stone underneath the deck to the front door. And what we noticed was that that deck is actually south-facing and actually gets really, really hot in the summertime. And there was no sort of awning or, anything there to protect our guests from, the sun. So what we did is we turned the area underneath the deck into like a little patio area that provides natural shade, from the sun. So we dropped some stone there. We got a couple, like patio furniture that we put down there, tables and stuff like that. So it's a nice little hangout spot. We got little LED lights that light up at night. And it's a, short walking distance, maybe 35 yards from the fire pit, so we did that this summer. And next summer, what we're planning on doing is something we're actually really excited about. Is there was from the last before Jessie, they built a tree house in the back of the property, and it was built pretty solid, but it looks like that it was kind of stopped from turning into what it could turn into. So we were going to be, planning on cutting down trees around that area, putting like a walkway down there, a ladder, cutting out some windows, and doing something really cool with the tree house in there as well.
I know that Jessie was trying to get the highest rent that she could get for each stay by using automatic pricing tools. Were you guys able to get a higher rent or do anything to try to make it more profitable in the summertime?
I think what we were able to do, I think this year, what we ended up creating, I guess, was maybe a little bit more demand, if anything, just by the way that we had a lot of interest coming in. And then we also used the, automatic pricing tools and my wife really took care of that, but she kind of made it a more of a competitive pricing. So it was kind of on the higher side. So we were actually making more per stay this year than I believe Jessie was last year. And so that, that definitely helped this year as well.
Yeah, I love it. I just think it's so great what you've done that you had this property that Jessie just got tired of trying to make work, and you went in there, you made a couple of changes, and it sounds like this is a great deal for you. And also it ends up being a great deal for Jessie that she's getting the mortgage paid and making $800 a month. So congratulations. I think it's great that you were able to pull this off.
Yeah, no, it was exciting to kind of pull it off. A lot of what our main thing is, we have a team here, and we acquire primarily a lot of creative deals, subject to hybrid deals, seller finance deals is typically assign those deals. But when this one came our way, it was pretty close to us. It's only about an hour and 20 minutes, I think, maybe an hour and a half away. And also kind of, our family's been growing. So it also, something, in the back of our mind too, was not only, the financial gains that would be associated with it, but also like the opportunity for our family to go there and have our 4 kids go and play and be at the beach and at the lake. And, whenever it's not rented out, whether it's in the summer or the winter time. And that was another thing that was really, kind of important to us. It was like, hey, even if, let's say we're not, we're projected to cash flow, per year, it averages out to around $1,000 a month. But let's say if we were over on our projection and it was only, $500-600 average per month, but with an opportunity of us to be able to bring our family to and enjoy the property as well, and in an area that I grew up in when I was a kid and that we love to be around. That was another really big thing for us as well.
I think this episode is a great example of how it's possible to put together a creative deal that's a win-win for everybody. And I think everybody won in this deal. I think John won because he got what sounds like a good property with some really good upside, and he didn't have to put any money into it. And he got a turnkey property that was already furnished. And I think that Jessie won because she got out of a deal that wasn't working out for her. And now she's making $800 a month for really no work at all. And she's got a path to get the rest of her money out of the property in 3 years. So I think this is a picture perfect way of how to put together a creative deal that works for everybody. Well, if anybody wants to reach out to John, I've got his contact information on the website. You can find it at rentalincomepodcast.com/episode 434. I'd like to thank our sponsor for making this episode possible. It's Chaley Ridge from Ridge Lending Group. If you're looking to buy a rental property, whether you're just getting started or you want to add to your portfolio, reach out to Chaley. She's a nationwide lender, and she has dozens and dozens of loan programs, and she can find something customized to you for your situation. If you want to reach out to Chaley, you can track her down at her website. It's ridgelendinggroup.com. That's RIDGE, lendinggroup.com, NMLS 42056. Thank you so much for checking out the podcast today. I'll be back with a new interview next Tuesday. My name is Dan Lane, and this has been the Rental Income Podcast.